Well, yeehaw and howdy, everybody. I'm here with my little girl sitting here, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to get this show started here. Sorry, we're coming into you about an hour later than usual. We've had all kinds of fun technical difficulties tonight, and even got George jumping back in and out. So we're going to try to get George back in here, and we're going to get this started. Housekeeping stuff. Make sure you guys are following us on Twitter. Make sure you're following us on Instagram and all that fun stuff. Make sure you get on toiletsandtitles.com where we have the best articles, and they're going to start cranking out here pretty soon. And make sure you join our Patreon. The Patreon has a bunch of different levels on it now, and the more you get into it, the better it gets. And I think that we're even talking about one where we'll even get on there and we'll set your lineups, things like that. We'll or at least help you set lineups. You could just put us in your pocket for about 10, 20 bucks a month. So, but $3 a month gets you into the Discord right away, and that gets you talking to us on the side. Make sure you do that. A little bit of a cluster show this evening. I apologize, but this is what happens when you have to prep a show for the AFC South, which is what we are going to be talking about tonight. On my left right here, I got my man, Joe. What's happening, Joe? How we doing this evening?
Well, good segue into the the glamorous AFC South.
Oh man, it was dreadful even just typing up those names on there. I was like, who the hell are these guys? And then looking intensely into the future, we have our man George right below us. George, how we doing?
Dude, it's apropos that I'm having all types of computer issues and you're having computer issues on the evening that we're talking about the AFC South. So
yeah,
I feel
that
thumbs up this whole division.
Yeah, my computer was trying to prevent this show from happening as hard as it could. It just didn't happen. And then saving the best for last, I guess, we're going to go with Jason, my man, homeless Jason in the corner. For everybody that can see him at home, that's not a real home. He's actually in an alley right now, but he has it modified into his background, so it looks like he's in a home right now.
It's a green screen, totally green screen. It is.
Yeah.
It is. I don't know if apropos is a. I don't know if apropos is an actual word. Somebody
apropos.
Yeah, there you go. It's apropos, right?
I can pick up words, okay? Listen, I'm picking up words. I've got all the best words.
Listen, his fantasy football is better than his words. That's what I gotta say.
Fact of the matter, right there. Yep, you're gonna want to follow George for his insights and not his grammar. For sure. So with that, guys, we're gonna go ahead and
grammar. You're gonna learn new words.
That's very true. So will you, George. We can teach you quite a few. We'll go ahead and get this kicked off. It's not going to be as fun as anybody wants it to be, but we're going to start this off. We're going to start off with the Colts, guys. The Colts have quarterback as Matt Ryan. They got Jonathan Taylor, who's amazing, and they have Nyheim Hines as the running backs. We got Pittman Jr., Alec Pierce, Paris Campbell leading off on the top three wide receivers. Kiki Kuti, about the only one of mention, backing them up. And then we got Mo Alley Cox and Granson tight end. Jason, this is a great team. Who on this team do you just love and can't wait to get on your squad?
No. Can I say no? No. So here, looking at this list, Matt Ryan is a guy that I will probably target, which is surprising to people. But here's the thing: I am a late round type quarterback kind of guy. Trey Lance is going very late, and I think my strategy in a lot of drafts is going to end up being I'm going to take Trey Lance and then I'm going to back it up with a steady guy like Matt Ryan. And that way, if Trey Lance comes out and busts, I have a steady Eddie kind of guy. That's the only thing. I mean, Michael Pittman Jr., I think he's going a lot higher than he should. He's a darling for one reason or another, but I'm not a fan of anybody on this team. Taylor, right? But like, unless you have one of the first couple picks, he's not worth talking about.
Unless you have the first pick, because let's face it, in a single quarterback league, Jonathan Taylor should be the first overall pick. And in a super flex league, to be honest, he should probably still be the first overall pick.
I'd take Mike's boy, Josh Allen, and then probably Taylor right after that. And super flex, obviously.
Right. Yeah, I like that. One of the guys I'm really kind of excited about to see how he does on the field, especially when you got a gunslinger like Matt Ryan as the quarterback right there, is Alec Pierce, the rookie. He's coming in there. I feel like he's going to be a really, really good accent to Michael Pittman Jr. I feel like with those two guys out there, they're going to be able to get enough attention off of each other that this might actually be a fairly productive offense right here. And I know that Justin was way high on Kyle Granson, the tight end. the more and more I watch this guy and the more I watch his involvement, more so the more I watch what Mo Alley Cox can't do, I really like Granson a lot too. He's a guy that I'm being able to grab like very tail end of the draft, and he might be a viable enough tight end. Now, likely he'll be one of those 3 for 33s. It'll get you the occasional touchdown like all the rest of the tight ends in the league. But I do like Granson too. What about you, Joe? Is there anybody on here that you're liking?
You know, despite the quarterback change, and I definitely think they've upgraded, obviously, from Wentz to Ryan, but I still feel like they're a team that's going to be better with NFL wins and losses than from a fantasy perspective. Matt Ryan he never threw touchdowns in Atlanta, and I don't really have any reason to think he's going to throw more touchdowns in Indy, although I do think he's going to be good and efficient. You know, I wonder what Pittman will be like with him versus Wentz and Rivers, right? This is Pittman's 3rd year. He's had one with Wentz, once with Rivers. Am I right there? So this is another quarterback for him. So it'll be interesting to see what type of advancement he makes. And then the only other thing here I see fantasy-wise is Hines took a little step back last year versus how involved he was in the offense in 2021. And I'm hopeful that he kind of goes back to that 2021 to a guy who gets 5 to 10 targets a game, as well as, gives Taylor a blow every once in a while. But that's really it from a fantasy obviously other than Jonathan Taylor, but even Pittman, like, I don't think I'd want Pittman to be any higher than my number 3 wideout, or I guess a flex in a standard lead lineup week 1. And I will leave you with that because it's the Colts and what else. I know Paris Campbell, I feel like maybe had some momentum a couple of times last year. So I'd be curious to see how he develops, but
it's all about injuries with Paris Campbell. Like, he has had very short stretches of not being hurt and actually looking relevant. So if he can ever put it all together, going back to Mo Alley Cox, the guy is an absolute freak in size and speed. And every once in a while he'll make this play and it'll be all over Twitter, and you just go, as big and as fast and as strong as you are, why don't you do that all the time? And he just doesn't.
So looking over the list here, there's not much I can add about Jonathan Taylor, right? Like, consensus RB1 in both Superflex and in PPR leagues, or single quarterback leagues. Like, he's the number 1 running back on the board. Nyheim Hines, okay, he's a decent flex at times, but not anything you want to get super excited over. Pittman, as mentioned, he's going on to his 3rd quarterback in 3 years. Alec Pierce, I believe, is a rookie. Paris Campbell's had flashes, but he's just never been consistently healthy. Kiki Kuti is just that, Kiki. You guys have talked about Mo Alley Cox, big, strong, athletic guy, but we've never really seen it from him. And like Mike said, he's a guy that's going to go out there and get you 3 for 36 at times. Everything basically hinges on Matt Ryan here. And looking at Matt Ryan, like, going into year 37 years old, last year, he only threw, and I understand the Falcons were a bad offensive team last year. They lost Calvin Ridley. Their offensive line was atrocious. But still, he didn't crack 4,000 yards in 17 games. He only had 20 touchdowns. He also threw 12 interceptions. I'm just concerned that what we think of Matt Ryan doing during his prime that is going to translate to what he's going to be able to do in Indiana at age 37, and I just don't believe it. Yeah. Like, I think we're seeing not the back half of his career, but basically the end of his career. And I don't want anything to do with Matt Ryan. Like, if I had a choice between Justin Fields and Matt Ryan, I'd rather have Justin Fields. There's more upside. There's no upside with Matt Ryan. I
can tell you the difference is the worst offensive line in the league versus one of the best. And when you have a guy like Matt Ryan who's immobile, having the worst offensive line plus no weapons, Calvin Ridley gone, Michael Pitts, or Pitts is the only guy there that was the only weapon there. And we're not talking about the Falcons right now, but the worst offensive line to one of the best. Like, I think that gives Matt Ryan a little bit more life here. He's going to be better than Carson Wentz was last year. He's probably going to be on par, if not better than, God, why can't I remember his name? We just talked about him 2 years ago there. And
Rivers.
Exactly right. Yeah, he's going to be on par or better than that.
I don't.
But
Was Phillip Rivers good? I don't think he was.
My last thing with the Colts is I keep on going back to Pat McAfee a couple of weeks ago. Like, I'm looking at these guys, and I'm like, how were they not in on Robert Woods, Amari Cooper? I'm not even talking the big guys. Forget about Hill Adams. Like, they weren't willing to throw a fifth at Robert Woods. How is that possible?
And they had some of the most money in the offseason too.
Yeah.
Like that. To go into this offseason needing a wide receiver desperately like they did and to throw no money at it whatsoever is just insane. Now, I know the money for wide receivers, and we'll talk about at least one of them here soon, but the money that teams threw at wide receivers was ridiculous. But when you have it, you got to do something with it. And just leaving Michael Pittman on an island is bad.
That's why we saw so many first-round receivers go out in this draft. It's because of the expense that those guys all caused right there. We got our man Nino. He's on board. He says Ryan is greater than Wentz. He says Pittman is a rocket and Ryan loves receiving RBs. Hines is a sleeper. And he also thinks Julio Jones will be going over there. And then we got our man Coach who thinks George is stuck in the upside down, which speaking of Stranger Things is coming out soon. So
tomorrow.
So
George, tomorrow, I believe.
George, you better get out of the upside down because you're going to get eaten.
I don't know,
man.
Upside down. Coach and I'm going to teach him new words.
There you go. That brings us up to the next best team right here. We got the Titans. We got Tannehill and Malik Willis at the quarterback. We got Derrick Henry, of course. Hassan Haskins backing him up at the running back positions. We got Woods. We got Westbrooks, Inkine, Burks, Fitzpatrick as the wide receivers. Then we got Austin Hooper at the tight end position. George, how about you start this one off? Who are we looking at? Who do you like?
Well, as Jason will tell you, Ryan Tannehill, top 10 quarterback all time. No, I don't actually believe that. Derrick Henry, again, like this division, to be a running back on both these two teams, the Tennessee Titans and the Colts, like you just gotta love being able to face Houston and Jacksonville 4 times a year, right? Like those defenses, you could just run all over them, have huge games. So love the running backs here. Robert, yes, Treylon Burks. I don't know. I mean, they're saying he's out of shape. They're saying that he showed up to camp. He's not ready. I kind of feel like that is just a narrative that's being spoken, just like Jamar Chase can't catch a ball.
Yeah.
Have the white lines on the ball. So I'm going to let people talk all their crap about Treylon Burks. And that'll just allow me to get him in a discount in drafts. That's fine. But yeah, like I like what Tennessee did. They went out and they did get Robert Woods, who, if he can come back healthy, is gonna. I think Robert Woods will be a replacement for Julio Jones and what the production Julio Jones was able to provide them last year. I think he'll actually be a little bit better. Treylon Burks, I'm not going to say he's going to be able to replace the impact on the field of what A.J. Brown did, but I like Treylon Burks. Like I think in a couple of years he'll be that guy for them. Hooper, I mean, not a big fan of Austin Hooper. So if you're asking me what I like here for fantasy, honestly, it comes down to Henry, Woods, and Treylon Burks, and I think they'll be consistent throughout the year. I don't think you're going to see a lot of huge games from Woods and Burks. I don't think you're going to get those week winning games from them, but I think those are guys you can rely on week in, week out. Put them in your starting lineup, put them in your flex, and you won't have any regrets. Like they're not going to go out and cost you the week.
Jason, do you have anything to add to that, buddy?
Yeah, I mean, not too much. Obviously, Henry's going to be top 3 probably in most drafts. Tannehill really hurt a lot of people last year. I think George is probably one of them because you're trying to find, the late round quarterback that's going to be able to give you a little bit of rushing upside, some touchdown upside. And he's been ultra consistent on the Titans, and he didn't do that last year. The Burks there, coming in out of shape, I get it. Like that's a narrative, but who else are they going to throw it to? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, Robert Woods, fine, but like, there's nobody else there that's going to take Treylon Burks' spot, right?
Westbrook hyphen Ickheim.
Akina? Is Akina? Yeah, I mean, so really, yeah, he's out of shape. It's not going to hurt his touches. And then Woods, am I excited to go get Woods? Maybe not. But here's what I'll say. Around his draft position, and this is one of the things I looked up from here, around his draft position, you are getting guys like, and sorry, I've got a Mac now and I'm trying to figure it out. Okay, so guys like Rashad Bateman, Dawson Knox go right before him. Then you've got Melvin Gordon, Isaiah Spiller, Ramondre Stevenson, Pat Freiermuth, Trey Lance, Kirk Cousins, Chase Claypool. That is not a who's who of what you want on your roster. Like I think Woods of a lot of those guys has some upside depending on what your needs at that point in the draft. So if you need a wide receiver, I'm absolutely taking Robert Woods over Chase Claypool.
Yeah, I agree there.
And Joe, do you have anything else you want to throw in there?
I mean, if Tannehill can't win a big game with Davis and A.J. Brown and then A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, I just don't see it in this list how it's going to happen. I feel like it's going to end up actually being, and I do agree, the division is real. So you get those 4 games against Houston and Jacksonville. So that alone, Derrick Henry is probably going to get 1,000 yards in those 4 games put together. But it's going to be a frustrating year, I think, for him in a way, because once Robert Woods gets hurt, which is also inevitable as much as I really do like him, once he gets hurt, you're stacking 9 in the box against this team, never mind 7 or 8. So I feel like it's going to be tough when it's not one of those really soft schedule teams that they're playing. I feel like it's going to be a struggle for these guys to score points this year.
Now, here's the thing: like, their Tennessee's defense is absolutely phenomenal. Like they are absolutely phenomenal. This team is the team that took home first place in all of the entire AFC last year. So this team is going to be good. They're going to be able to put up points. I think they're going to be in a lot of close games, which will allow Ryan Tannehill to throw the ball down the field. You got Tannehill again, who, people don't realize it, but he is a rushing quarterback. Like he ran for over 250 yards last year on 55 attempts. So he is a mobile quarterback. He is an athlete. He's not a pocket quarterback. Now he's not Lamar Jackson or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying he can scramble and get outside, and he will run for a first down or 2. He'll run in for a touchdown here or there. So I mean it's a very good team that's going to rely heavily on the defense. And I like Derrick Henry. They're going to want to run the ball. And I think let them stack, 8 or 9 in the box. That's fine. Tannehill is a capable quarterback. He'll throw the ball on you if you do that.
So my take on the Titans is this. Like, I think that they might have to adapt to youth before too long. But I think you're right, George. I think this defense can keep them enough in games to where they will be able to run the ball a lot. That's why I'm with my man Nino on here, and he says don't sleep on Hassan Haskins because Derrick Henry's going to hit that wall. It's 22. I think Derrick Henry has one good year left in him, but I'm still going to be grabbing Hassan Haskins very late in redraft drafts just because he's going to be a easy grab, and it's the handcuff for a very high-powered offense. And I only didn't put Kyle Phillips in this list because they already had the rookies. We got Treylon Burks that he'll be backing up, so I do like Kyle Phillips. I just don't really like his opportunity. And he says, George, you're looking clean tonight and fresh. Love it. Love it, George. And I'm looking like a wildebeest because I think I've got COVID type 7 Cole. I don't freaking know anymore what to call it. But we will. And it could just be that I'm about ready to talk about the Jaguars. That could be why I'm not feeling very good right now. So that brings us to the Jaguars. We got Trevor Lawrence at the quarterback. We got Robinson. He's going to be the guy that is he's leading the depth chart right now, even though we're not even sure he's starting the season. But we got Etienne backing him up. He's looking good. We got the running back, Zay Jones. We got Marvin Jones. We got Christian Kirk, Laviska Shenault, Jamal Agnew. And then the tight ends are Ingram and Dan Arnold. So about this team, they sure have stacked up. They sure have gotten a lot of I'd say decent players in some of these positions. Like Zay Jones is okay. Christian Kirk to me is a fairly serviceable receiver as well. I do like Etienne a lot, and I think Ingram and Arnold could be 2 sleeper tight ends. What do you guys think?
Well, let Joe go first on this one.
You know what?
That's
Honestly,
okay,
this
Joe.
is the third out of the fourth team. This is the most intriguing list of player names, in my opinion, that we've seen. If we're really talking fantasy, we know that Tennessee and Indianapolis are going to have better records than Jacksonville, but like right off the bat, that running back situation is going to get really interesting. I think I don't really know what to make of it. Robinson, I feel like Robinson was like the stock market last year, just like up and down and up and down, and then hurt and not hurt, and then bad game, but then he woke up. So now, obviously there's going to be some real competition behind him. So I'm interested to see that, and I'm interested to see what type of steps Lawrence takes. He's got some real weapons this year. I mean, Marvin Jones, Kirk, Chenal, I mean, that's a deep group with 2 serviceable tight ends that can both catch the ball too. So I'm going to be really curious to see what these guys do. Christian Kirk in a PPR, I mean, it's hard to get past the money they paid him, but then at the same time, you got to believe that he should be looking at like almost double-digit targets week over week. I'm a Giants fan, so Evan Ingram with Arnold, you know what? I think as a pessimistic Giant fan, I say to myself, you should just stick with Arnold. I know they made that trade, I believe, midseason to get him, right? However, Evan Ingram obviously has the potential to be he's got the potential to be a top 10 fantasy tight end. I don't know. Maybe it's the change of scenery and now he becomes that. I'm not sure there, but I'm intrigued. If Kirk was my number 3 or my flex going into week 1, I wouldn't hate that. If I had a little bit of running back action between Robinson and Etienne, I wouldn't hate that either. I'm not saying I want them to be one of my core 4 or 5 players, but there's to me, this is the most interesting list out of the 3 that we've looked at from a fantasy perspective so far.
So for a fantasy perspective for me, I've got, outside of a dynasty league, really, I've got no interest in Trevor Lawrence. I don't want to start him. Maybe on a bye week if I need to, but that's about it. Like, he's not one of the top 12 quarterbacks I feel comfortable going into.
I agree with that.
The running backs are very interesting to me. James Robinson, I believe, is a better running back than Travis Etienne. I don't care what the draft capital says, but the issue is James Robinson has an Achilles issue. So that leads to a whole lot of questions, especially since he injured it at the back end of last year. And then there's Etienne. He's coming off a Liz Frank injury. Now, I did a little bit of looking up and prep for this, and I'm going to run through a whole list of people who've had this Liz Frank injury and what they did the next year. And the results are a mixed bag of everything. Julio Jones, he fractured his Liz Frank in 2013. His next 2 seasons were career best. Brian Westbrook injured his Liz Frank in 2005. His next 2 seasons were his career best in rushing. Le'Veon Bell suffered a minor injury to his Liz Frank in 2013. His next 2 seasons, he rushed for 1,361 yards and 8 touchdowns and received 83 receptions, 854 yards and 3 touchdowns in 2014, and had another stellar season where he actually received over 800 yards the next season. And then you get into the MJD suffered a Liz Frank injury 2012. His production dipped nearly 50%. San Antonio Holmes severely injured his Liz Frank in 2012. Next season, he had a sharp decline in receiving. Cedric Benson injured his Liz Frank in 2012, never played another snap after that. Ronnie Brown in 2009, he declined in 2010 and only rushed for 734 yards and 5 touchdowns. After a breakout year, Darren McFadden injured his Liz Frank. His next season, his rushing declined down to 700 yards, and then the following season after that, 258. Ted Ginn, after being drafted 9th overall in 2007, injured his Liz Frank prior to his rookie season, never lived up to the potential that he had in the NFL. So it's really interesting with Etienne. I understand he had first-round draft capital. They were planning on using him more, I believe, more in a receiving role than in between the tackles. James Robinson is, as I mentioned earlier, he's banged up. I'm not relying on him. I don't even think he'll play next season. I think at the very least he starts on the PUP list. So I'm not all in on ETN. There's been some success for people coming back from this injury, and there's been a lot of people who just they did not come back from it. So I'm very skeptical on ETN. I'm going to try to avoid ETN and Robinson in redraft leagues anywhere I can. I want nothing to do with either one of them.
I can dig that. What about you, Jason? What do you think?
I'm not as bearish on ETN as George is. You know, what I saw there was a lot of the guys you thought were ultra talented really had a good year the next year, and the guys who were mediocre to start with, even though they may have had a breakout year, like had mediocre years the following season. You know what I mean?
Not to interrupt too, but if Robinson starts on PUP, wouldn't that put ETN in the position to be getting 20 touches a week for the first 6 weeks?
Probably not. No, they'd for sure pick somebody up or use one of the other guys on the roster. Like I don't see him getting 20 touches. He's not that guy, but he does have rapport with this quarterback with Trevor Lawrence. They play together in Clemson. So he has rapport with Trevor Lawrence. I think he's going to be okay. I'm not going to avoid him. I'm not going out of my way to get him. But like if I start early with wide receiver, depending on where I am in the draft, if I start with wide receiver early and I need a running back, I'm not going to shy away. I wanted to look at Christian Kirk a little bit, and it's more about where he's landing than anything else, because with guys like Christian Kirk right now, it's all about value. Are you getting a value? And like you said, if you're getting a wide receiver 3, you know, it's about where he's going around what wide receivers, if you need one, where he's going. And right now, yeah, it's dynasty season, so some of this is skewed, but he's going around a lot of the rookies. So like Drake London, Chase Claypool, then Christian Kirk, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Kadarius Toney, Michael Gallup, Deshaun Watson, Rashad Bateman, like Dawson Knox. It's like that is the area in which like he's going right now. And in that area, I think Christian Kirk is at least interesting because they did pay him that kind of money. And they're not gonna allow that team to spend that money and not use him. He's a slot receiver. I think he'll get leaned on a lot. So and he was just shy of 1,000 yards last year, had something like 927. He right in that range on an offense where he wasn't anywhere near the first option. So Christian Kirk's interesting. Evan Ingram, if he ever put it all together, could be interesting. I really liked Dan Arnold last year. It seemed like he was Mr. Consistent for a while, and then the team just stopped using him. You know,
I believe he hurt, didn't he?
No, it wasn't an injury. He was on the field. He just didn't get any catches. I remember recommending him week after week, and for like 3 weeks straight last week on the Sunday morning show that we were doing, he hit, and then that fourth week I'm like, look, it's Mr. Consistent. He got you the same amount of points every week, and he went out and laid a goose egg. He went 0 for 0 for 0 for 0. It was awful.
He had a grade 2 MCL sprain.
What week was that?
It was towards the back end of last year.
Yeah, this was before. This was before his injury, though. They just stopped using him, and then they said he had an injury. And so I think Evan Ingram. Look, we're going to do this thing at the end where we talk about what's the best tight end, and I haven't seen a better one so far. Like it is miserable for tight ends. So if I had to take a tight end from this division, which Evan Ingram's the one at least with some upside. So hopefully I'm not in that position. Sorry.
Gotcha. Yep, nope, I agree. I don't mind the tight ends here. I mean, I would rather have somebody, I'm like you, I would rather have somebody besides Ingram. The two guys that are kind of backing up James Robinson and Travis Etienne is Snoop Connor that they drafted this year. He seems like he could be okay. And then they still have Raquel Armstead, who is still on COVID protocol from 2019. So that brings up
I chuckled at that, but that dude like legitimately almost died multiple times from COVID.
Yeah, he barely fought his way back. I kid around, but it's not a funny matter. Like when you think about what really happened to that guy, and it'll be tough to see if he ever really truly bounces back to the NFL level.
So before we move on from the Jags, Mike, you got to be a better parent here because we talked about the Jags and your daughter cheered. We got to fix that.
Yeah, she likes the Jaguars. She likes kitties. She'll tell you she likes kitties.
Okay.
That
That makes much more sense. It's just like my kids picking teams because of colors.
Well, but she likes them because they're cute and furry. And I'm sure that's how most of the NFL views the Jags, anyways. So the next team up is the Texans. We got Davis Mills running the quarterback show. I'm loving seeing that guy. We got Marlon Mack leading off the depth chart here. You got Burkhead backing him up, and then Damian Pierce, the new rookie, coming in, backing them. And then on the wide receivers is Brandon Cooks. We got Collins. We got John Mechie the third. We got Dorsett. We got Conley and a bunch of other people you've probably never, ever heard of. And as the wide receiver, then we got Jordan Brevin and Pharaoh Brown at tight end. Jason, you started us off. Why don't you finish us off? How do you like this Texans team?
I mean, I don't. I think Mills could have been a good quarterback. I was a big proponent when he got drafted of the Buccaneers drafting him, letting him sit behind Tom Brady for a couple of years and then learning, because he was a good quarterback with good skills in college, but didn't play very much. And I think he came out a year too soon. I think he needed another year. And now he's starting in the NFL, right? So what do I know? But I think he still would have really benefited from sitting behind somebody and learning a little bit instead of getting thrown in with Marlon Mack, Burkhead. I like Damian Pierce because I like the opportunity he's about to get that. I think Mack may be burnt. And even if he's not going to carry a huge load. And Burkhead's probably 80 by now, I think, in running back years. Cooks is there. I like Cooks again. All that dude, all he does is go from team to team and produce, and in the rounds he's going in, he's another guy that you can take in those mid rounds. You're going to get some big old games out of him. Mechie, I think he's a possession guy who couldn't beat out some of the best talent on his college team and won't beat out some of the better defenders in the NFL. So Dorsett, showed flashes here and there. Conley, I mean, it is and then Pharaoh Brown is a cool name, I guess.
In a redraft league, it's just Mack and Cooks. They're the only two guys even getting drafted.
Yeah. So is it a hot take to say Davis Mills was the best quarterback out of last year's class? Because I feel like as of right now, that is a actual factual statement. There's not another rookie that came out last year that was better than Davis Mills. And that's not to credit to David Mills. I don't believe he's the long-term answer for Houston, but they're going to give him another chance this year. He's going to be their starting quarterback this year. And I hope he goes out and kills it. I really do. I don't know, but I hope he does.
So George, is it giving him a chance, or is it letting the team sink to get a better quarterback next year?
Well, listen, I've always said that it's a great position to be in, right? You could go out this year with Davis Mills. Listen, we all recognize the Texans are rebuilding. And I said this with the Patriots when they had Jared Stidham and Cam Newton as their options at quarterback. It's a great position to be in, to have this young quarterback to where you can start him the whole season to find out, hey, two things are going to happen. Either he's going to play really, really good and we have our future quarterback, or he's going to go out, he's going to play terrible, and now we know, hey, we have to replace him in the draft this coming year, and now we've got an early draft pick because our quarterback played terrible for the entire season. So it's actually a great spot to be in for the Texans, and they're loaded with draft picks. They got a whole lot of compensation for the quarterback who I absolutely refuse to acknowledge. So it's not a bad situation for the Texans. Their future, if they can hit on a couple of these draft picks, isn't that bad. But as far as fantasy goes, Davis Mills, okay, maybe I'll play him on a bye week against the Jaguars because the Jaguars are terrible and their defense is terrible. Marlon Mack, Rex Burkhead, and Damian Pierce, give me whichever one of those three is the cheapest in the draft. I'm not spending capital on a Houston Texans running back. If Damian Pierce is the last running back standard, fine. I'll take a flyer on him, put him on my bench, see what happens. But I'm not spending early draft capital on any of those running backs. I do like Brandon Cooks. All he does is go out and produce. He's super reliable for you. He's clearly the best wide receiver on this team. He's going to be Davis Mills' number one target. And if I need a tight end for some ungodly reason and Jordan Brevin is available, like, okay, but it's not something like I'm getting excited over. I'm not expecting much from him. So, yeah.
It feels like Cooks is the first freaking guy to go at the trade deadline this year. I mean, you look at he's like Waldo in this group of names. How does he even stay on the team all year?
They just re-signed him though.
I know.
I believe he actually re-signed with them.
Yeah, he just resigned.
He requested it. Yep, and he
must have a wife that's got to be like, I ain't fucking moving. We're staying.
Hey, right.
This is my 37th team in a 32-team league.
Right.
We are not moving again.
Yeah.
I don't care how many first-round picks they gave up for you. We are not moving again.
Listen, the running joke where Brandon Cooks was all the Hall of Fame quarterbacks that he got to play with in his career. He had what? Drew Brees, Tom Brady, and who else? I don't remember.
Oh, he played
Watson,
with
right?
Yeah.
Not
Yeah,
a Hall
Sean
of Famer
Watson.
yet, but
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe it's just that all those other quarterbacks threw real hard, and Davis Mills throws real soft. So, like, maybe he's just looking out for his hands. I don't know.
That's too funny. So the guys I like off this, I don't mind me Marlon Mack. I think Marlon Mack might be a little bit of a workhorse guy to get things started. Definitely a guy that you're going to want to draft and be really prepared to trade, say, week 3, week 4, when he's on his high note and be able to get something for him, and then try to go get Damian Pierce with that because he'll be taking that job over. I do like John Mechie III. I think he's fast. I think he'll fit into this offense pretty well, especially opposite Brandon Cooks there. But yeah, I'm with you guys. There just really isn't not a whole lot of meat on them bones, as we said at the beginning of in the intro of this thing. It just isn't a whole lot there to be had. So,
like, what's the under in a week 2 game? Houston at Jacksonville. The under is going to be like 37.5.
Negative.
7 was the number that came to mind.
Yeah, which it's crazy.
Watch that game be like a 60-point game.
I know.
Both those defenses are dreadful. Now let's go.
Can you imagine that's your game of the week? Like, you have to watch that?
Right. That would be terrible. But that would be awesome if they made it a game. Because, like I said, those teams, when they're that bad, they have the potential to be able to do that kind of stuff. So let's go ahead and go through. So who's the best quarterback in the AFC South? Joe?
The best fantasy quarterback in the AFC South, I guess, is Ryan Tannehill. Because he's going to run to the point that George made. If it's 250 and 4 rushing touchdowns, that probably ends up pushing him over Matt Ryan from a points perspective.
Yeah, he had over 250 and 7 last year. So
I think you got it.
I'm right there with you, Joe. It's Ryan Tannehill for me.
Jason?
I'm going to say Matt Ryan, back behind a better offensive line. Michael Pittman there. He's got a running game. He's going to be able to shovel past the crap out of it to Jonathan Taylor on the goal line. I'm just going to say Matt Ryan.
I agree with that. I think Matt Ryan's actually
passing it to Jonathan Taylor. He's handing it to Taylor to go right up the gut.
He's going to want some of them stats, man.
Yeah, he wants them points too.
20 and 12 last year. He doesn't care about those stats.
He couldn't throw touchdowns with freaking Julio Jones and Roddy White. He couldn't throw touchdowns. He threw for yards, but he's never thrown for touchdowns. He's been so aggravating for such a long time, fantasy-wise.
I do think him in Indianapolis is going to be a really good thing. Best running back it's Taylor, right? Hands down. Does anybody have an argument with that? Jonathan Taylor.
It's a shame because, like, Derrick Henry for me is a top 5 running back in the NFL,
right?
But he falls in the same division as Jonathan Taylor.
Right.
I mean, look,
he's number 2, and it's a close number 2 for me.
It's real close, man. Because in 8 games last year, Derrick Henry had 900 yards.
Yeah.
It's real close. The thing that hurts Henry the most here is that, like, AJ Brown's gone and there's not another weapon to worry about.
Oh, Treylon Burks will prove you wrong here soon. The best wide receiver in this group, George?
I'm going to go Brandon Cooks, actually.
Jason, you agree?
I completely agree.
The best fantasy wideout, huh? I don't know if it's that simple, but yeah, I guess I'll go Brandon Cooks.
I agree.
I kind of hope he's not the answer that by the end of the year, like just to inject a little excitement, whether it's Cook or maybe Pittman really progresses. I'd rather see that. But I guess Cooks is the safe pick for sure.
I could see Kirk being a real dark horse in this situation and coming out and leading this pack too, and Pittman as well. But for me, yeah, if I've got to pick one of these guys, it's going to be Brandon Cooks. Now the best position in this division, who we grabbing for tight end? And we're going to start with you, Jason. Who's your tight end?
It's Evan. It is 100% Evan Ingram.
That's so sad.
That is like the only time his name will ever be said in the best tight end category. But it is 100% Evan Ingram.
Mine is Pharaoh Brown because I just wanted to say Pharaoh.
I love that name.
Yeah, but it's not. It's Evan Ingram for me too. What about you, Joe?
Oh man,
Giants fan getting ready to suck up his pride here.
Right? I mean, you can't go. Yeah, you got to go Evan. I honestly, if you guys weren't, if people weren't high, I guess on Granson potentially. You could probably maybe talk me into Allie Cox just because they do have Matt Ryan now and he's huge and he did get a lot of red zone targets last year with Wentz. But I guess I'll go Evan Ingram. And you know what? As a Giants fan, it would be quite poetic and quite consistent for them to let him go and him to, now finally find himself.
Quite aqua pro as
It's very pro that you swallowed your pride and took Evan Ingram. I'm actually going to go Mo Alley Cox, believe it or not.
That's not a bad one either. Mo Alley Cox is a good pick here too.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go Mo Alley Cox is the best tight end in this. The one thing he does have going for him is Matt Ryan does have a very long history of targeting his tight ends. And getting them involved. So I'm going to go with Mo Alley Cox over Evan Ingram, going to a new system, a new team, new offense with new coach, second-year quarterback. There's too many risk factors there for me. So I'll take Mo Alley Cox.
And I'd like to mention again, Granson should be a really good sleeper because I think he could take away those targets from Mo Alley Cox in the long run.
In a dynasty, I agree, but I'm not outside of Kyle Pitts. I would never trust a rookie tight end.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Well, Granson's not a rookie. This is I think his third year coming in.
He's a rookie.
Still the rookie in tight end terms, though. Tight end is a really hard position in the NFL, and everybody always wonders why it takes 3-4 years for these guys to get it. But it's because they have to know blocking, they have to know. It's a really, really hard position. Well, guys, that's going to wrap it up for us tonight. We were able to get through this miserable division. Make sure you guys follow us at Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Facebook, Podbean. When a Family Breaks, which is not the thing anymore. It's actually got a different name, but it's a cool Facebook group where we have all the trading cards and things like that. Go to www.toiletstotitles.com. You got the best videos, articles, and NFL fantasy content. You'll see all of our ugly mugs on there anytime you want to. And also make sure you guys get on that Patreon. Patreon.com/toiletstotitles. $3 a month. That is, you spend more money on streaming apps that you never even use anymore than getting on here and getting on the Patreon to patreon.com. And I guarantee you'll want to stream, especially once it gets going closer to the season. You're going to want a lot of these guys. We got all the best experts. We're gaining, we're growing, we're doing everything. You're going to want to get in on this, and you want to get in on this early. And especially if $5 will get you into the Frankenstein, which is just a blast. Guys, do you have anything to add before we call this good?
I'm just going to add, I'm glad we're done with this episode and we can move on to the NFC South next week.
I was going to
a lot more entertaining and a lot better subject matter.
I was going to say the NFC South is going to be the gift we get for dealing with this pile of AFC South.
Yes.
Yeah, amen to that. Amen to that. Well, like I said, guys, make sure you get on there. Give us those likes. Give us those follows. For us at the Blitz crew, you guys have a good night, and we will see you next week.